I hate Google. No way. We're not doing that whatsoever. I think this is the worst case scenario or worst idea ever. And what happened in the end was I yielded and we gave it a go. And we ended up making like $500 to $600 a day from these Google Ads campaigns that are running. So
let's talk about the AI and the future of remote PPC agents.
Building an agent around how we can automate and bulk optimize titles and descriptions within a supplemental feed in Google Ads. They're just bundling everything all together, all in one asset group and just setting it going. And the second thing I'm seeing is leaving all the settings on for automated creative assets by Google. That doesn't always work at the moment in your best interests.
Welcome to another power-packed episode of the Agency Insider Show. I'm your host, Navneet Kaushal. Today, I'm joined by Tim Sutton, founder of Launchpresso and someone I personally admire for his incredible sharp performance-first approach to e-commerce growth, especially on Google Ads and YouTube. In this episode, we are going to dive into advanced performance max tactics for Shopify, what marketers are getting wrong about multitouch attribution, and yes, it's getting more and more important now, and how AI is reshaping remote PPC agencies like us. Tim, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, pleasure to be on the show here. Hi, everyone.
So, Tim, let's start with your journey and your accidental agency growth. So, your story of founding Launchpresso is both, of course, unconventional and inspiring. In one of your interviews, you described the agency start as accidental, rooted in experimentation and a willingness to try anything that might work. Can you walk us through that moment? When were you, as you put it?
Yeah, it was a very interesting come about of becoming a PPC or digital ads agency that we are today, Navneet. How it all began is my pedigree is actually SEO. Started out with that in 2014. And I had some affiliate websites that I was running at the time. They got hit by thin content updates around 2014, early 2015. And they were just sitting dormant for the longest time. And my business partner at the time, my business partner and I, we were about to get into, we're trying to work out what to do in terms of an agency. And I presented to him these old sites that I had sitting there. And we approached, we found out through those sites that I had that there was an opportunity to be able to bid on specific keywords like product X plus coupon. And based on that, he's like, no, we have to give this a try. We have to try Google Ads on this. And I was like, I hate Google. No way. We're not doing that whatsoever. I think this is the worst case scenario or this is the worst idea ever. And what happened in the end was I yielded and we gave it a go. And we ended up making like $500 to $600 a day, from these Google Ads campaigns that are running. So it was kind of like $1 was going in the machine and $5 was coming out on the back end. And we just couldn't shove enough money into this thing whatsoever. We knew this was going to be short-lived. So we thought to ourselves, let's quickly go get some clients because we got good at this in terms of Google Ads. And then we started going down that path. And long story short, here I am today running a digital ads agency birthed out of that.
This was which year when you started?
Wow. That experiment started around the end of 2016, going into early 2017.
Okay. And so what were some of the early digital marketing services you experimented before PPC took off?
It's funny. We were full stack and everything to everyone at the time. So we were doing SEO, CRO, Meta ads, Google ads, everything you could throw the kitchen sink at. We were just doing anything to get traction at the time in our client base and doing it for like the lowest possible amounts you could even think about, usually from Upwork, in order to just get going.
Okay. So, and you also mentioned that running affiliate websites gave you a unique opportunity. You were able to run PPC ads on keywords that you got affiliates are not usually allowed to run, and you got a special permission. So what did you
Yeah.
learn from that experience, and how the hell did you got that special permission?
Well, yeah, that's a really cool story as to how that happened. So, like, usually with inside affiliate platforms, they'll tell you what you are and are not allowed to bid on in terms of their keywords. Usually it's around their brand. And like I think I've been in the affiliate program for the longest time. We just approached the affiliate manager and said, hey, like, you've got these keywords. Is it possible that we can get permission to be able to bid on these keywords? And they granted it. And I was like, no way, this is really interesting. So I was like, okay, once we got that, I was like, okay, well, let's give it a go. Let's start with a low amount of ad spend or whatnot. But like, again, it was our first time trying Google Ads. We really didn't know what we're doing. But the thing that we couldn't do, and maybe there was solutions for it then, we couldn't track the actual sales from the affiliate on the affiliate site, not our site, but the actual where the transactions were being made through our affiliate partner. We could only track at the time the clicks. I know later on I learned that there's actually things called trackback tools where you could possibly get all that information back through into the Google Ads account. But at the time we were just sort of like half flying blind, as to how to get those kind of results. And yeah, it was just a good crash course into Google Ads and PPC marketing in general.
Okay.
But yeah, one of the other biggest things that I learned about was just the mindset shift to being all SEO.
Okay. Now, looking back, what advice would you give to the beginners who want to dive into paid ads, especially those who might not have a traditional agency background?
Yeah, I guess it all depends on what approach you're wanting to do. If you are looking at doing it from a digital ads point of view as a service for companies, the best way to get started is to essentially try find some really, I think the best way to be starting out is to offer your services in exchange for something initially first. You may not have any credibility in order to, you probably don't have any credibility to be able to get paid work yet. So you got to get runs on the board, as we would say. So do things in exchange. Work for someone for 3 months in exchange for like a review or a testimonial, or you be able to put yourself a case study together. You need to get that body of work together to be able to present yourself that you know what you're talking about and that you can get results. So that's one approach you can do it. Another is to get on these gig platforms and just start building those up in terms of, like, you would have to maybe start at a lower rate. It is a race to the bottom, particularly now. But if there's any friends or family that have got small businesses that you could actually do some work for them, and they do have an ad spend budget, that's the best way to get started in terms of agency.
And does these certifications help besides, in terms of learning?
Yeah, absolutely. It shows that you're willing to, you're willing to put in the work, and you're not just flying by the seat of your pants and guessing your way through the experience. You've actually done a little bit of groundwork. Really, that's fundamental and comes as a prerequisite, if you want my opinion, when it comes to you having those qualifications and certifications.
Okay. Now let's jump into something which you've been talking a lot about, Advanced Performance Max for Shopify growth now. So of course, I've seen you've been very tactical and transparent about how to do it right, especially for Shopify stores. Now, for someone managing PMax for Shopify, what's the ideal way to structure asset groups from scratch?
Yeah, that's a great question, because most often I'm seeing when people do set up Performance Max, they're just putting in what we call a catch-all single asset group within a campaign and just leave that running into that particular region or even multiple regions. It's not the best way of going about it, because as we know, when it comes to a Shopify store, especially when you've got a large amount of SKUs or inventory, you're going to have different price points and different profit margins, gross profit margins, that is. And so it's important that you set up your campaigns in a way that you're like grouping together even similar price points or product types in individual asset groups with all the assets built in together, if that's going to be part of your strategy. For example, let's say blue widgets, you want to have that in its own asset group with its own headline, ad copy, descriptions, images, videos, and obviously the product listings for that. And then if you've got, I don't know, like for example, red shoes, you might have blue widgets and red shoes. You want to definitely have that in either its own asset group, but if it's a different price point, you may want to put it in its own campaign. The only thing with that is it all depends on your budget. So if you've got a smaller budget, you might need to group them all together initially, and then have target ROAS that might work well between all those. Or if you've got budget to spend, then you can start separating them out and have more control over your returns that you're looking for within your Performance Max campaigns.
So when you mentioned large budget or smaller budget, is there a particular average monthly spend that budget should be to qualify for a large budget?
Yeah, again, that all depends on how large the store is, what region you're going into, and obviously they're the two main ones that you got to be thinking about when you're advertising, because there's also search volume for those as well. That's the next largest thing. So, for example, the pet industry has so many different search queries and volumes of every different types of animals that are out there. But if you're going into something that's very a very
niche specific,
the niche, if the niche is very, very specific and not very searched often, then the budget's going to change. But to answer your question, average I'm seeing at the moment is around $5,000 to $10,000. If for businesses that are around anything up to $1 million, but if they're starting to get over $5 million, I'm seeing budgets well over $25,000 a month, even up to $100,000 a month in ad spend or more.
Okay. Now, how do you layer audience signals and intent to avoid wastage spends while still scaling?
Yeah, great question. So when it comes to, if we're still on the Performance Max topic, very much important to have within those asset groups, the right search themes is what we call them. So they're not exactly keywords as such. They're just almost like a broad match within that asset group. And you can layer it as well with audiences with intent. And that's it. This is important to give the right signals to Google in order to go out and find those people who are in the marketplace or who are in market in order to be able to buy those products. And why Performance Max can be good, whilst it's needed. With that said, you need to keep your eye on it to make sure that it doesn't go off on its own algorithmic machine learning path. It's important to have all that information in each asset group to ensure that you're giving all the right signals to Google, because Google is using within a Performance Max campaign, specifically with smart bidding, it's pulling all these signals from all their browser history and how they're moving throughout the internet. Google knows us better than it knows ourselves. So what it's aiming to do is put the ad at the right time, at the right place, in order to be able to get them to eventually make a buy. So, this is kind of the direction that Google's pushing us to go, using these things called signals and search themes, and taking away control for us because they think they know better than us. And in a way, they are getting better at it more and more over time as we're feeding their machine.
Okay. Now, what creative testing systems are working best for your Shopify clients today?
Yeah, what we're finding at the moment is this is where we use Meta, or in terms of what our testing is doing as well. So if we're finding specifically at the top of the funnel, because we just don't do Google Ads, we also do all different digital ad platforms. Right. Yeah, and that'll dovetail into what we're talking about multi-touch in a moment. Nice. So what we could be doing is if there's any specific creative, like single images, or what we might do in terms of some light design work on creatives, we'll be testing them in what we would call interruptional based marketing. Interruptional based marketing is like socials, getting in front of someone, getting in their face, as opposed to intentional based marketing, where Google does both that as well as interruption, like using other surfaces like YouTube, display, etc., as opposed to search, where it's everyone's looking for something. There's the intent behind what they're looking for to buy or getting information on. So we'll be testing in Meta to see what kind of creatives are doing well. And we'll be isolating them off in terms of making sure that every different creative gets enough impressions so we can test them all properly. And then what we're seeing is doing well, then we'll put them into our Performance Max groups, or even our display or demand gen campaigns as well, because we know that they're tried and tested. We're also doing that with demand gen, like shorts. So reels, for example, or stories in Meta, we're testing them there, and then we put them directly into demand gen or Performance Max, where we overlay where actually those particular campaigns overlay PLAs, product listing ads, across those shorts, like sponsored shorts. So people can just see the ad of, for example, a water bag for the gym, a magnetic water bag for the gym, and then they can click that product right there and there inside the YouTube app.
Okay. So do you find the cost of ad or pay-per-click or the cost of acquisition lowest when it comes to these with which channel?
Oh, yeah. I guess it all depends. It all depends on which channel is getting the lower cost per click or lower cost per acquisition. Because what we're finding now is, like, if you're running multiple different channels, those channels don't talk with one another. They're all going to say, like, if they come through a Google Ads if they click through a Google ad from whether it be a shopping ad or a search ad, right, and they buy, Google's going to say, we got the conversion, right? And then you've got Meta, if they, in whatever journey that customer's going on, also clicked an ad for that same product and came and bought at the same time, then they're also going to say they got a sale. And then so it kind of messes up, who actually got the sale, like where are we going to attribute this to?
Right.
So, so you can say, yeah, sure, Google might be doing well, but then Meta could be doing it well as well too. At the end of the day, when it comes to the best, like, returns or CPCs, and it all comes down to the offer, really, because ads is only one side of the coin, but on the other side, once they get through, what's the journey look like for them on the site? Is it really easy to get the product into the cart? Can they add more easy? Can they swiftly move through to make it super, so they can add, like, pay through PayPal or whatever payment gateway that you've got set up for them? All these things down the road is going to make a massive difference to wherever, and again, it all comes down to the niche too. Some niches respond well on socials, and some will just do better with intent on Google platforms and services.
Now let's talk budgeting. So how do you decide what to split by product, margin, or stage of funnel?
Yeah. Yeah, that could be, let's just say, for example, I'm trying to get, let's say it depends all on the customer's goals and KPIs. If they're just really focused on profit, really want to drive that home, I'm going to be pushing more of the budget down into the bottom of the funnel, more or less. Like, people already know what they're after and they're looking for big returns. They might have thin margins on their products. I'm going to be focused on that. But if the client is looking to get new customers, wanting to bring people into their overall ecosystem funnel, for want of a better term, and they don't mind investing more into finding some of those new buyers, because they could be, the lifetime value could be quite high because they're repeat customers. Right? I would be pushing more into the top, like in terms of brand awareness and exposure through videos, Meta, or whatever it might be. I would be more flipping them on their head. I would be going more like 60-40 or even 80-20, and having lower on the bottom of the funnel, for example. And again, it all depends on how much we got to play with. The more, the merrier. But if we got limited budgets, we've got limited budgets. We're looking only a couple of $1,000s a month. It's like, oh, you know, if we're in somewhere like the US, I'm like, damn, you know, you're going to be making that very difficult for us to get your results. But somewhere like Australia, you know, 1/10 of the population, we can maybe work with that. And then CPCs might be lower because there's less demand. Because all of these campaigns that are running are essentially an auction. So if there's more competition in those geographical areas, it's going to push up. It's going to push up the CPCs and depending on how hard you're trying to push. And then the quality of those ads, the quality of the landing page, all take all that into consideration as well. Right. So Google's looking at all that. Same with Meta. So.
Yes. Now, so what are the common mistakes you see Shopify store owners makes with Performance Max, and how do you think they can avoid them?
Yeah, I think I'll take that one step further as well. One big thing I'm seeing that owner operators are doing within their accounts is they just don't have their conversion tracking set up correctly, you know, and so they're really flying blind. It's not an easy thing to get set up. You could probably do it with the Google and YouTube app, and that will essentially get most of your things going. But like if you're also taking in leads as well as sales, you need to have all that information into the back of the Google Ads as well, and getting those conversion values into Google Ads to so it's all attributed properly. So that's one step, and because it affects everything down the line. But let's say hypothetical, that is set up and it's all working fine. Again, coming back to the Performance Max is when one big thing I'm seeing at the moment is they're just bundling everything all together, all in one asset group and just setting it going. And the second thing I'm seeing is leaving all the settings on for automated created assets by Google. That doesn't always work at the moment in your best interests, okay? Because they could be just creating anything crazy from anything they're scanning through your site. Could be anything from text, image assets, and video assets. All right, so yeah, you got to keep an eye out for these things because they could work. You might get lucky, but more often than not, they don't. Like for example, I've just taken on a new client, and Google created an asset using their incorporated name, you know, and they put LLC at the front, LLC, blah 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 blah, you know, company X, and so you just got to keep an eye on that. They're the biggest things that I'm seeing at the moment, and not having really good ad copy for the search side for like responsive search ads inside of Performance Max campaigns. You got to, you know, they do know their products better than anyone else, but it's just the way they're written, you know, to be really impactful with decent call to actions, you know, come and buy, come shop today. All these things are kind of missed out, which is very important. I think they're the things that come to top of mind.
Okay. Now let's talk multi-touch attribution without the hype. Attribution, of course, is messy but necessary. Of course, you can cut through a lot of noise around triple whale and similar tools. Now, for agencies dealing with 5+ platforms, how should they think about MTA realistically?
Yeah, to be honest, it's really important that attribution tools need to be used, especially through multi-channel platforms. There's no way to really get around that at the moment because, again, as I mentioned earlier on, you're kind of guessing your way through it. Sure, you can take all the revenue and add that all together along with all the ad spend, add that all together to come up with a blended return on ad spend calculation. But then you still don't know which is being the most effective and which isn't. You know, again, like with that said, some of these attribution tools can be biased depending on what their algorithms are saying internally as well. Like triple whale can be quite weighted towards Google Ads instead of Meta. But then you have to sort of kind of use your own gut and intuition from what you're seeing in these tools as well as where things are going. Like prior to like one client that I was working with me for many years, they weren't using an attribution tool, and we're only running one channel with them at one stage, and they were running Meta through someone else, and we were taking that over at the time, but they paused it for like a couple of weeks before. And when they did, even though we could still see returns coming through Google Ads, their returns on their Shopify stores started to drop off significantly, even though it was getting a really low, returns through that platform, but their revenue just dropped off significantly for whatever reason. And so that's where we said, you need to use something so we can actually monitor things and put it all together and determine which campaigns, ad sets and ads are going to be being your winners, essentially, without each platform being biased. So, there's a lot of hype going around it, but there's method in the madness for using them. It's being a big game changer for us. But in addition to that, with attribution tools, is to make sure that you're profitable within every different campaign that we or within the account in general. So it's important for us to now use those particular tools to monitor that and make sure that information is going back into every platform as well.
Okay. And so what are the biggest misconception about attribution platforms like, let's say, Triple Whale or Northbeam?
Biggest misconceptions. I have to think about that one. Biggest misconceptions with Triple Whale.
Or biggest issues people, because people think something like that, okay, this is, I would see that, okay, I use this particular tool and it solves all my problems. So
as I was going to come to, that's what I was going to say. The biggest misconception I've seen people who might be leaning on, even agencies to a degree, is that they can be, the complete overarching truth. It doesn't take away the fact that you need to know the basics when it comes to marketing in general. It's not a plug and play situation where you can just go, off and to go, and then it will tell me exactly what's going on and it's all fine and honky-dory. You still need to know how to be a good marketer, how to, structure campaigns correctly, know each individual account and how they work and how they even talk with one another. Because when you've been in the game as long as I have been, data is everything, but then there comes the art, right? So you got science plus art, and then when you've got the feels of how things work, putting them both together, you're a powerhouse in terms of using a attribution tool, questioning what's going on there, but also knowing how data flows into in and out of these each individual marketing platform.
Okay. Now, how do you use blended metrics versus platform specific metrics in decision making?
Sorry, you sort of blipped there for a second. Can you repeat that?
Yes. So how do you use blended metrics versus platform specific metrics in decision making or reporting?
Yeah. Very good question, because now, for us, it's we can, once we start seeing those blended metrics come in, we can then measure what we call MER or MER, right? Marketing efficiency ratio, I think it's called. Don't quote me on that, but it's again that very much it's a very simple thing, and I mentioned it before. It's revenue divided by your ad spend, but not only that. It can be a powerful tool to be able to tell us within, following customer journeys, essentially, within those things. And so when you look deeper within these attribution tools in order to be able to find out platform specific, then you can actually get some weighting on as what's happening. Because you might see people having 10 touch points within these things, but the weighting might be coming from your email follow-up campaign. All right. So, and then it's okay, if that's going to be the case with some of these blended metrics and whatnot, you can get some ideas on what you could be doing more or what you need to be improving on in terms of your other platforms specific. hopefully that answers your question, Navneet. I think I might have went off on a tangent.
Generally,
Yeah.
because the attribution is not that simple. So I understand it's complicated. It's not
Yeah.
one thing will answer everything. So I understand. It's just that something on this. Now,
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
yeah. So let's talk about the AI and the future of remote PPC agency. You are a remote PPC agency. So, so of course you run a remote agency which is fully distributed, fully digital. So what does your tech stack look like right now in terms of AI tools?
Wow. Yeah. That in terms of AI tools, like obviously ChatGPT, Claude, a little bit of Grok, but it's moving so fast right now, and it's even hard to keep up with some. If I was just to say, if I just add, I think a lot of people, you're cautiously optimistic or even scared optimistic of what the future is going to look like. But you're either going to be on the right side of this. You can be optimistic and be excited about it, or you can be, if you're not using tools specifically, you could be dropping off. But to answer your question back to tools, what we're looking at exploring now is things like cursor.ai, because we're going down the rabbit hole of using scripts within Google Ads, which is bringing a lot more automation, and a lot more alerts. Another one that I'm looking at the moment is N8N, because of the agents. Now, I'm not hugely queued up on agents at the moment because that's like only been happening very quickly. But for the little that I've seen, which I'm wanting to go down the path of, is building like an agent around how we can automate and bulk optimize titles and descriptions within a supplemental feed in Google Ads. Because when we're getting clients coming through now that have got SKUs of over 5,000, trying to even do that with ChatGPT one at a time, right, can be taxing. It still takes time. So is there a way we can set up like an agent where you plug in everything, your sheet, your whatever model that you're using in terms of LLMs, having agents checking one another, giving all the instructions that you want, and then it just fills out line by line just in one click, and then you just go through and vet and check everything, see if there's any errors. But if you get 95% of that right within a few minutes on 2,000 SKUs, that would be absolutely freaking awesome. So that's what we're looking at building internally. I know there might be some tools out there already where people have built this and put a skin over it, so to speak, with a web application. But like, if for cost saving, you can still build them out yourself. You could probably build them out within half an hour and then you're good to go. This is what we're exploring at the moment in terms of that. But inside the Google Ads interface as well, there's so much happening, like, beta chats. It can just scan your website and come up with ad copy already for you, or even your images. It's moving so fast at the moment, with even inside that, it could come to the point where, maybe even little needs to be done with some tools that we're currently using, like ChatGPT.
Okay. And now, is there any other tech stack outside AI you are using for managing PPC?
Very much so. Besides
ChatGPT and AI.
in terms of ChatGPT, like in terms of AI, they're kind of the ones that we're like focusing on. But other tech stacks we're using heavily, baked in with Shopify. We're using Profit Metrics. Profit Metrics is a great tool that we've only been rolling out for most of our existing Shopify clients, as well as all the new ones. Almost every single new client that we're signing up at the moment, we're getting profitmetrics.io. That allows, once all the ecosystems all connected together, pulls in all the gross profit margins. It reads all the ad spend. It reads all your shopping costs, everything. And then we can also put in our agency fees, and they're going to present to the client where they're actually being profitable and not. But not only that, we're also leveraging on label automations using rules within that. So that allows us to put specific products in buckets, like highly profitable, low traffic, unprofitable. And then we can move products in and out of different assets and performance max campaigns, where we could be suppressing or pushing others harder that do really well. So that allows the client to stay in the maximum amount of profitability as possible, depending on their budgets. But the more profitability we can become, the more budget we get. So there's one.
Now,
I think there might be more, but it's fun.
So for Shopify, and are there any plugins which you use for Shopify, or is there a go-to plugin, or do you just don't use any?
Yeah, so there's a couple of feed apps that we are using.
Yes.
Like there's the Google and YouTube app that would do that for very simple stores. It's fine, has its limitations. We have been looking at a sim process app. That's fine. That's good as well. But when we start to need to do multiple feeds, we're looking at like multi-feed tools and whatnot for that. And everything I mentioned about agents, I know that like there's other cool tools out there called like Feed Optimizer, I think is actually another one that kind of bakes in all that. But they're the ones that we're using mostly inside thing. But for our clients, we take a lot more of a holistic approach as opposed to just using instead of just running their Google Ads accounts or any of their digital ads platforms, because obviously we want them to do improvements on their sites so ads look more like rock stars, because as I mentioned before, you got two sides of the coin. So when we tell them, like, listen, if you could add this to your product listing, add a bundle, we'll get 1, 2, 3, or 4, that naturally is going to increase the average order size. They're going to get a greater ROAS. So we'll tell our clients, like, use these kind of bundle apps, or even add in a shipping guarantee at the checkout, an extra $2 or whatever it is, that gets taken up 1 in 100 times, and you've just added yourself an extra couple of dollars to your average order size. And yeah, like it's just extra revenue per year you wouldn't even get usually. So these kind of little things that we would tell clients to add in as apps pay for themselves in the long run.
Okay. And now, what's been your biggest challenge in managing a high performance remote team, and how have you solved it?
Yeah.
Or have you been able to solve it?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, yeah. I would say the hardest thing with running a remote agency is actually retaining talent. You can pay them well, you can give them the best flexibilities they want and all this sort of thing, but if they feel like they're not getting results, a lot of my team get motivated by results, whether it be us growing as an agency or actually getting results in our clients' accounts. So, for example, things just go wrong with business in general outside of what we're doing. And if they're told to start backing off ad spend or whatever it is, generally they get disappointed and want to move on, even if they're A players. And it's hard to retain them and keep them on. But how I've managed to solve that is actually just getting more clients in the door and finding those people that we can work with, and they get that dopamine kick in order to feel like they're sticking around as well. So their biggest things, and obviously there's things like incentives. Incentives do help, but there's got to be more. You got to give meaning within the group, within the team. It's really vital to be able to do that. There are a couple of things that from a operational team dynamics point of view, but also on top of that, which is it's like a double-edged sword. You want to do everything, give your team to keep them happy, but also you also don't want to let the reins out too far with team. You have to keep checks and balances in order and make sure that everything's accountable and responsibility for what they do. So introducing time tracking tools like Time Doctor or whatnot has been something. It's come at many protests, but it's a non-negotiable now. Yeah. Right. And then with screenshots, I don't go look at screenshots, but when I start seeing things go wrong, then I
Yes.
go, and I want to give people the benefit. I want to give my team the benefit of the doubt and always trust that they're doing their work. But it's important to, we got clients. They trust us. We are their custodian of their precious ad spend and their business. So
Yes.
that's important for me too. So that's part of my DNA, their DNA, my DNA. I want to make sure my team understands the importance of and the responsibility we have and the obligations for our clients. So yeah, it's just important to have these kind of things in place to make sure everything is transparent across the board.
Okay. And now let's talk about in the last segment, YouTube brand building.
Yeah.
You mentioned you are excited about YouTube more than anything else, and it's a brand play too. So what do brands still get wrong about YouTube ads in 2025?
Yeah, I think from what I've seen in terms of like building brand on YouTube, people aren't consistent enough, and that includes me. Like when I'm not consistent, I notice things drop off. And reasons being why I'm not consistent is because I'm not in my own routine. I'm either having to leave Chiang Mai because it's like pollution season and I don't have my YouTube studio dungeon as I do at the moment. That's the big one, is just trying to stay consistent with that. And I think also there's maybe even misconception around quality, people, and perfectionism. People feel like they have to have the best videos in order to be posting on YouTube, because they may be frightened of backlash, or they have to have something overly glamorous. Just get going, hit that record button and just go for it. And optimize by maximization. I like Hormozi's quote on that. I watch a lot of the podcasts around, and one of his quotes was like, you could make 5 perfectly good clay pots, all right, or you could go for 100 clay pots and just get them out as much as possible. And by the time the person's made 5 perfect clay pots, you've made 100. And by the time you've got to the end of 100, you probably got way better clay pots and perfected clay pots over the guy who's made 5. So YouTube's very much a volume play. The more you can get out, the more eyeballs you got on your more eyeballs you got on who you are and what your offer is and what you're known for. And how that works in the real world. I noticed that as a big difference in the last SEO conference I went to in Chiang Mai. Like, I was only the PPC guy. I was the blue dot amongst the red. Even though I still do a little bit of SEO in my own time, a little bit of client work here and there on SEO. But when I went to obviously SEO's changed a lot in terms of the landscape, thanks to HCU and many other things. People are looking at other traffic sources, and I'm friends with these guys. So when I'm posting them on YouTube on my personal profiles, you're top of mind. People were introducing me right, left, center. Oh, Tim, here's the PPC guy. Here's this guy, whatever. And people will remember you all the time. And so that's also dovetails into the consistency. As long as you keep doing that, it could be even once a week, or a couple times a week at the very least. People will know you for you, and you'll get referrals, or people introduce you, and your business will grow. And look at the guys who've done things in the last 12 or 18 months. Julian Goldie, you got Kazra Dash. They're just crushing because they've been doing it every day, nonstop, and they built their brands quickly. And you can see what happens on a volume play. So that they're people to look up to for that. For me, I wish I could have done that. I had health issues during last year, but I did my best to keep things going. And now back on the wagon again to keep that consistency going for now. But yeah, don't worry about the quality. Just ship. Just get it out there and improve as you go.
Okay. Now, can you share one YouTube campaign structure that you have find particularly successful?
Unfortunately, I can't on that one. Because I haven't focused specifically on YouTube for any of my clients for a long time, because we've been adding those assets primarily within Performance Max. Actually, tell a lie. It hasn't been YouTube specifically. It's been demand gen. All right, which is pretty much all in the YouTube platform. Again, there were shorts. We took all the assets that the client was doing well, running Meta themselves. We took all those assets, we added them into a demand gen campaign with with everything like the data feed and whatnot. Hit go. Took a little while to get off the ground, but as soon as it started getting some momentum, we're actually getting positive returns on that campaign now, and that has been coupled with a scaling of the account. So where we're finding these do well is when there's just so many signals and a lot of data coming into it, like Google Ads, for example.
Okay.
They're just crushing it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Tim. With that, we come to the end of our show, and this was an absolute masterclass and clinic in modern media strategy. And thank you for being so open and practical with your insights and telling us which tools you use. And once again, thank you for giving me your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Navneet. It's been a pleasure to be on the show.
Yeah, and for our audience, if you loved today's episode, please drop a review, hit subscribe, and share this with your favorite media buyers. This is Agency Insider Show. I'm Navneet Kaushal. Until next time, keep testing, keep scaling. Thank you. Just gonna end the recording.